Zach Lavine is injured and is done for the year. What does this mean for the Chicago Bulls moving forward? Could the NFL have the Super Bowl on pay-per-view in the near future? We'll discuss both the Pro Bowl and the NHL All-Star games, really. And we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday as we kick off Black History Month. That and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. Second City Sports on Sports Zone. Chicago starts right now. Welcome to the Monday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in the living color, baby. Along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools to be able and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can get Sports Zone Chicago live in living color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, or your Android phone, just hit up the Google Play Store and download their Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will provide you with some of the best here on Second City Sports. Of course, this is our basketball power hour. We're talking some NBA and Bulls. Both are going through some pretty big injuries right now. And, of course, some interesting things that happened over the weekend with the games themselves. Also, too, we'll talk some college hoops. Illinois got squeaked by Nebraska yesterday and some other as rivalry week. Well, Statement Saturday, as they called it here. Statement Weekend, as they called it on for this weekend in college hoops. Also, too, we got a great show to dedicate to Old School TV Monday, just in time for the first Monday of Black History Month, and a coaching carousel for an NFL is starting to fill up, and a whole lot more. But first, Sid, we got the news over the weekend about Zach Lavine from the Bulls, that foot injury he suffered. He's done for the year. He's going to have surgery. He's going to be gone for about 4 to 6 months. He got to go rehab and all that. And so whatever trade value that the Bulls had for Lavine, that's gonna be over and done with, at least for the regular season. There's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories that are out there. You know how Bulls Twitter is. So, so what do you think about the injury? And of course, we won't talk about the Saturday game. That was just against the Kings. That was just well to their credit, they did keep it close. And they were able to catch up. I think it's down to maybe 3 or 4. But unfortunately, De'Aaron Fox made some clutch shots late, and so that's why the final score was a little bit indicative to how close the game really was near the end. But even still, so what'd you think?
Here's the thing about the Zach Lavine situation. One, it sucks for him. Hopefully, he'll recover and get back healthy just in time for the start of the 2024-2025 season. It stings for Bulls management because you had your opportunity to trade him, but because this contract that you signed it to before the start of last season, which really handcuffed this organization, you could blame Arturas Karnisovas and GM Mark Eversley for that, overvaluing him for that. As we said before, Zach Lavine is a star. He's a two-time All-Star, but he's not a superstar. But he got paid superstar money. You know, the old saying, much is given, much is required. And Zach Lavine, we know with his talent, doesn't match up with the superstar money that he's received. But with that being said, what is the future of this Chicago Bulls franchise, Lakina? I said this to someone over the weekend, and I know we had discussions on this show. We'll bring it up once again because the trade deadline is this Thursday at 2 p.m. Chicago time. There's a fraction of Bulls fans now with this injury to Zach Lavine. The Bulls should blow it up. But realistically, the Bulls are not going to blow it up because they're still right in the middle of the play-in tournament race. Now I believe they're 5 games under 500. You have Kobe White starting to play well again. Alex Caruso, he's still hustling out there, especially on the defensive end. Vucevic, it looks like he's starting to turn around. But before they went on that run in December, they had everything going in their favor because most of the core players on their roster were healthy. Now you have Patrick Williams on the shelf. Zach Lavine's gone for the year. And DeMar DeRozan, I know they're not talking contract extension with him. They may be for good reason. We'll get into that in a minute. But the Bulls are stuck in NBA hell. And, with the management team, they were told to fix this. Well, they fixed it right away. But for the long-term plan of this franchise, where are they going to go, to be honest with you? Now, I will say you can make an argument of them breaking this thing up right now, but they're not going to. Should they do that at the end of the season, no matter how the season ends? I think so. But like you said, Lakina, let's be honest here. Will the Bulls fans be that patient for another 2, 3, 4 years? I don't think so. Let's be real here. They're not. And we're in the number 3 market in the country. And you thought things got real bad toward the end of the Gar-Pax era, which it did. I think if that happens, whether it's now, which I don't think so, or at the end of the season over the summer, things will get much more uglier than what it did toward the end of the Gar-Pax era.
Get out of my head, Sid. As this is like I say, Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you because you basically stole everything that I was gonna say because look, I know how some Bulls fans are, and everybody say, "Well, tear it up," look, tear it all down and start over. Okay, let's say if AK and Eversley did that, like they get rid of Vooch, they get rid of DeMar and whatnot. Should they be able to move Zach over the summer? Okay, fine. Okay, get picks or whatever, but. Look Orlando is just now starting to figure out, what to do. They're finally actually starting to get it going. Look how long that took. It took them over a decade. So if you really want to be, you're in NBA hell right now, the Bulls, but you're going to be you're going to pretty much be in purgatory if you do the things you're doing, especially if you don't, things happen and you don't get to be able to rebuild a team back up right away. It's not like, it's not like microwave. It's not the NFL where you can turn your season around just like that, or even the NHL because you can turn your season around. The NBA is totally different. It's wired differently. So I don't know if if Bulls fans will be happy with the rebuild or be patient with it. They're not. They can say that they are, but they're not. So this whole thing with they play again on Tuesday tomorrow against Minnesota, and we'll talk about Minnesota after the break. But yeah, it just feels like the Bulls are kind of like, look, the only reason why the Bulls are even still in the play-in hunt is because everyone else around them, for the most part, has been terrible. They've been just as bad, if not worse, than they are. So everybody say, well, let's tear it all down. Well, considering where everybody is right now in the East, outside of Milwaukee, and we'll talk about Philly situation second, and in Boston, and you probably even put the Knicks on there too. It's just not there. It's not.
I'll push back on this to make this point, Lakina. I'm with you. I don't think they're going to do anything at the trade deadline. I'm talking about in terms of the Bulls. Here's the thing, couple points. One, you shouldn't wait for everybody else to fall towards you, like Brooklyn, as you mentioned, like Orlando, Toronto, and Atlanta, to a certain extent, for you to, quote unquote, make the playoffs or barely make the play-in. You got to make your move now and win ball games. When you win ball games, everything should be in line for you at that particular time. But looking at it from a basketball sense, as far as the salary cap, we all know that the Bulls are cash strapped, and if they bring this exact roster back next year, they're going to pay a luxury tax. Mr. Jerry Reinsdorf and his group, I know Michael Reinsdorf is running the Bulls side of things. They're not going to pay that luxury tax. Is this team worth paying the luxury tax for? No. So DeMar DeRozan, who's a free agent this summer, I think it will make economically good sense for you not to resign him. Yes, you could try to trade Zach Lavine, but he's not going to be fully recovered from that foot surgery until early mid-August at the latest, and that's if he doesn't have any setbacks. Okay. Number two, Vucevic, you signed him before the start of the season. Do you try trading him again? And do you try to trade Alex Caruso, who has 1 year left on his deal that expires after next season? As we said on the last couple of shows, there's one team 90 miles north of us that can use it right now, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. And I read a story today on ESPN.com that the Bulls are putting a very high price for Alex Caruso, basically saying to teams, unless you get something that's going to knock our socks off, we're going to keep him through the rest of the season.
It'll be interesting to see what they do here. But yeah, well, let's talk about the rest of the NBA. Well, let's talk about the stuff that's going on off the field. Injury that could definitely be a hamper on the Eastern Conference. Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP for the Sixers, has a meniscus not tear, but it's well, I guess you could say it's sprained, and he'll have to have surgery, and then they'll reevaluate him after about a month or two. So if you're the Sixers, they've had a rough last couple of games. So where does this leave the Sixers now that your main guy is out? So the main part is that the Sixers, if you want to, however long it takes, he's going to miss the All-Star game, obviously, but he might be back before the end of the month. Who knows? They'll have to reevaluate him. But if you're the Sixers, where do you go from here? I mean, do you try to keep things afloat until whenever Embiid is able to come back? So it's a lot going on here with Philly.
Obviously, you're not tearing it down because they're too good of a team to do so. So if you're GM Daryl Morey and Elton Brand, who's in that front office as well, what do? Maybe you can add that mid-tier veteran guy at the trade deadline. I don't know. But outside of that, Lakina, as we said on Friday on this show, you're going to have to trade water to play around 500 ball to and see if Joel Embiid comes back. Because right now, in the middle of that Eastern Conference, it's packed. You have the New York Knicks, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you have the Miami Heat. We'll talk about them also after this timeout. But you have like 3 or 4 teams stacked for that 4, 5, 6 spot to stay out of that playing tournament scenario. So things going to get tight in the middle of the Eastern Conference. So a lot of the responsibility is going to go on first-time All-Star Tyrese Maxey. Tobias Harris is going to have to step up. Patrick Beverley is going to have to play a bigger role right now. So it's tough for Philadelphia. Do they have the talent to at least stay around 500? I think so, but obviously it's not going to be easy until Embiid comes back. That's if he comes back at all this year.
To be continued there as well. So we got to take a really quick break, of course. We'll talk some more NBA and, of course, some interesting scores that happened over the weekend. Also, too, in college hoops, a statement weekend, as we call it here, as various teams, make their statement as one of their conferences and get some much-needed wins in some cases as well. So we continue our basketball power hour coming up next. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. We keep it on the hardwood right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live in living color for this Monday edition right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kina McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't scroll again, the IG.
We have less than 90 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so let's go to the actually stuff that's happened on the court in the NBA over the weekend, starting with yesterday's games. Denver came back to beat Portland 112-103. Jokic had 29 points, and it was actually the supporting cast that kind of helped get the Nuggets back into the game because of late they were down by, I think this made like 15 points in the third quarter, so they were able to kind of get it going in the second half.
Yeah, when you're a team like the Denver Nuggets, everybody's going to come at you because you're the defending world champs. Some nights you're not going to have it, and there's other nights that you're going to play down to your competition. That's what happened last night for the Denver Nuggets. They were at home. You're down 15 to a team that you're supposed to beat by 30, but as you mentioned, and we talked about it with Denver all year long, they just had to maintain a steady pace, get the guys healthy, and get ready for the playoffs, which is coming up in a couple of months. But we mentioned about the Nikola Jokic, who's a phenomenal player, MVP candidate, but it's guys like Aaron Gordon, Highland, and Jamal Murray, those guys that is going to be the supporting cast to help Denver get back to where they need to be. So you saw them down, as you mentioned last night. They played down to their competition, but they woke up in the fourth quarter and said, hey, enough of this, and they did what they had to do to get the important win at home.
Big win there. Look, that's what you're supposed to do. You get pushed around by a team that you probably shouldn't have been, and then there you go, you come back and win it. Now I guess Milwaukee didn't get the memo as they were outscored 40-13. I should make sure I get that right. Against Utah. Utah outscored them there. They're just the fourth they're on top of the Jazz were the only NBA team in the last 25 years to outscore their opponent by 25 plus points in the fourth quarter, while while using the same 5 starting players for that whole quarter. So Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkinen, and Kelly Olynyk, led the way for the Jazz, and they've actually been playing pretty well lately. But yeah, they come back and beat Milwaukee. Just I saw the highlights of this game. It was just a crazy game in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, Colin Sexton had a bad game the other night. He came back with 19 points last night. As you mentioned, Lauri Markkinen, the former Chicago Bull, chipped in with 21 points as well. On the flip side for Milwaukee, I know they had that big comeback win, trailing by 23 points against Dallas the night before. I know Dallas didn't have Kyrie Irving, but if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you spend all the energy coming back, and you had Doc Rivers. Congrats to him on his first win as a head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, but you spend all that energy, again, the big win on the road. You had to go back on the road the next night, and the fatigue really set in for this Milwaukee Bucks team. That's what you saw last night. And Damian Lillard, you could tell that he didn't have a great game. He just had 12 points, only for 1-8 shooting from 3-point range.
Yeah, 1-4. Well, 1-3, 1-4 right now for the for Doc since taking over there in Milwaukee. I'm hoping Milwaukee fans are a little bit patient, but we'll see. OKC, they came back and they did 2 overtimes, but they did beat the Raptors 135-127. Josh Giddey had 24 points leading the way for OKC there. Minnesota, the Bulls' next opponent on tomorrow will beat Houston. The Clippers 103-95 over the Heat. Kawhi had 25. Kawhi is now 16-4, 16-0, I should say, against the Heat all by himself since 2014. When the Spurs faced the Heat in the finals that year. Leonard has definitely had Miami's number in the last few years.
Yeah, you mentioned Kawhi coming up big, but Paul George, he had an off night, but that's where your other supporting mates will chime in. Paul George had 15 points, but James Harden had a solid game with 21 points. Don't forget about Norman Powell. He was part of that championship team with Toronto in 2019 as a valuable guy off the bench. He led the Clippers with 16 points coming off their bench. So the Clippers were down early. They got hot in that second half. As we mentioned, Lakina, the Clippers have won 25 out of their last 30 games. As we talked about on our show last Friday, Lakina, head coach Finch of Minnesota and OKC's head coach should be the top 2 candidates for coach of the year. Add the third name to that list. That's Tyronn Lue of the Clippers.
Yeah, they're right there in that third spot. Only 1 game behind OKC and Minnesota for the number 1 spot. So they could end up very well having the number 1 spot by the time the All-Star break commences next weekend. So it's going to get a little bit interesting there at the top of the West. So they're making things a little interesting there. Indiana, Pascal Siakam making his presence known with the Pacers. They beat the Hornets. Celtics, no trouble with Memphis. The Suns, after a little hiccup last week, they're starting to play a little bit better. 140-112 over the Wizards. Bradley Beal had 43 there. The Magic beat the Pistons 111-99. Franz Wagner had 38 points, which is a career high for him.
Yeah, you talked about that in our first segment. The Atlanta Magic, they started off hot to start the year. They cooled off. Looks like they're starting to get it back together again. They have a nice, young, talented group down there. Greg Anthony's son, Cole Anthony, is down there. Of course, you have Jalen Green. Of course, you have Wendell Carter Jr. The name sounds familiar, Bulls fans? I think so. He's starting to play well. So that Orlando team, they're right in thick of it, too, as far as the playing tournament is concerned. We talked about Brooklyn. We talk about Atlanta. We'll get to them in a sec. But those lower-level teams, they're hanging around their playing tournament in terms of the situation with the Chicago Bulls. The Orlando Magic, they've given the Bulls problems too, and they're starting to give other teams problems again. So I wouldn't overlook the Orlando Magic. I'm not saying they're going to win the championship or anything like that, but it's not going to be an easy night for you when you play them on your schedule.
Yeah, they're right there, like in that little border between the top, the 5 to 6, and also the 2 in that playing spot. So yeah, it'll probably be that way for them the rest of the season. It was not like they're starting to kind of get together finally. You talked about this Milwaukee against the Mavs. You kind of say that they did expend a lot of energy coming back, but it was a little bit weird how that happens. But even still, Giannis had 48 points. So and I know Kyrie didn't play, but yeah, even still, a nice win for Milwaukee in that front.
Yeah, they got down early. Doc Rivers, he was brought in there to help straighten out that defense. It didn't look well early, but Giannis and Dame and then the rest of those guys, Bobby Portis stepped up. It was some veteran guys that made the plays when they had to, doing the little things to make that great comeback on the road. So we all know Lakina, it's a long season, especially when you on these road trips. Fatigue can set in, jet lag can set in, but Milwaukee had enough energy to get a big win against a very good Dallas Mavericks. As you mentioned, they were playing without Kyrie.
The ABC game of the week on Saturday, you got the Lakers beating in a kind of a mild upset too, and MSG beating New York 113-105. We know how much LeBron loves playing in New York. He had 24 points. Austin Reeves been playing very well lately. He had 22, but look, it was a bench scoring that did a lot. 16 points from Prince. Hayes had 10 points. So yeah, a nice solid team win, even though Anthony Davis was struggling a little bit from the field, only 12, but they did just enough to win.
Yeah, and also to D'Angelo Russell, despite a horrible shooting night, he chipped in with 16 points as well. I did watch some of this game on my TV screen. LeBron James, as you mentioned, he had that one dunk off the sweet pass from D'Angelo Russell on the fast break. As you mentioned, he loves playing at MSG. On the flip side, for the New York Knicks, they're playing well. As we mentioned on our last couple of shows, Jalen Brunson led the team with 36, but it's going to have to be some of the other guys that's going to have to step up for this next team, like Isaiah Hardenstein. He's going to be the starting center now since Julius Randle is going to be out for the next few weeks. Also, too, you're going to have other guys step up like Josh Hart and Sims, their backup center. I really like the way he's playing right now. But Lakina, hopefully that Julius Randle can get back in time, hopefully next month in the middle toward the end of March, so he can help. They can help the Knicks, gel back again and get a better position for the playoffs. But I want to ask you, Lakina, what move or moves do you think the New York Knicks can make between now and Thursday's trade deadline?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Like they need another shooter, so I think that might help a little bit. And if you're Tibbs, I'm sure you're gonna want a defender too. So it'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off. I mean, I know DeRozan's name has been floated out there for the Knicks, but I don't know if there's anybody else out there they can get that'll fit Tibbs' system. But I think that's a whole nother thing too. So yeah, you don't want to bring somebody in and he and Tibbs clash and everything kind of starts falling off the wheels start falling off, so you don't want that. So it'll be interesting to see what New York does, but I'm sure they'll probably they may have some up their sleeve. We'll see.
Yeah, and don't forget Dante Vincenzo, who they picked up from the Warriors. Yeah, DiVincenzo, thank you. Who they picked up from the Warriors last year. He's leading the league in 3-point shooting percentage since January 1st. That's better than Steph Curry. So the Knicks are getting some shooters, but I think they need a backup point guard to spare some minutes from Jalen Brunson. As we know, he's going to have to carry the load with the absence of Julius Randle. So we'll see what the Knicks can do between now and the trade deadline. We're just saying just this. They don't need an overhaul like they did a couple of years ago. So they just need to add a piece or two. We'll see what happens with them. Now, this game, I know you wanted to talk about. The Atlanta Hawks defeated the Golden State Warriors on Saturday, 141-134 in overtime. Steph Curry, 60 points in a loss. I think you kind of got folks that haven't been paying attention. This is the microcosm of the Warriors season. Steph Curry plays great, but everybody else does not step up when they need to. This looks worse than the playing team to me, and then that's the Golden State Warriors. I know Jonathan Kuminga has been playing well. I know that Pazimek has sorry, I butchered up his name, but he's been playing well these last couple of games, but if you're going to get that effort from Steph Curry, you're going to come up short. The Warriors can find themselves out of playoffs sooner rather than later.
Yeah, not a lot of scoring outside of Steph. I mean, I know Clay struggled. Like he's only 2 for 13 from 3. Draymond only had 7 points. Andrew Wiggins only had 2 points. So that's not going to work if you're trying to stay kind of within that distance of that play-in spot. And if you're the Warriors, look, Steph can only do it for so long. Remember, he's 35 now, folks. He's not getting younger. So all these guys need to kind of step up a little bit. And I don't know what the Warriors can do, but look, a nice win for Atlanta. Atlanta's kind of like in that little edge for that that play-in spot. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of perhaps maybe make a move. But I know Deontay Murray's been name has been floating around there. But I'm wondering though. Yeah, I mean the Warriors. I don't know. I don't know what you can do at this point with the Warriors. I mean, you can't. But Steph's doing his thing, but like everyone else isn't.
Yeah, the Warriors, just like the Bulls, they're cash strapped in as far as the salary cap is concerned. What moves can new general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr. make?
I don't think I don't
Really?
know if he can make any. I don't know if he can make it. He's
Exactly,
kind of stuck.
exactly.
He kind of stumbled. There's a reason Rob Palenka left. I mean, no, Bob Myers.
Bob
I should
Myers.
say Bob Myers. Yeah, wrong guy. But yeah, that maybe he was smart for leaving. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Philadelphia lost to the Nets 136-121. Cam Thomas had 40, which is a career high for him. Tyrese Max had 23, but we've been saying with Embiid going to be out for the next few weeks, however, how long. Yeah, they're gonna have to. The guys are gonna have to step it up. Max, C, here, all those supporting guys for the Sixers are gonna have to step it up.
Also, too, it depends on how well or not that Philadelphia plays between now and if Embiid comes back at all this year. That game on Saturday could determine your positioning in the playoffs, or if you make the playoffs at all. So this game on Saturday, it may not mean anything now, but it could go a long way in terms of playoff positioning at the end of the season.
Real quick before we go to the schedule, Golden State beat Memphis. John Kamea had 29, so nice as a career high for him.
This on Friday.
Yeah, all Orlando upset Minnesota. OKC, no trouble with Charlotte. The Nuggets beat the Blazers. I'm not repeating myself. They played again on Friday, so I'm not repeating myself, folks. Houston, no trouble with Toronto. The Kings beat the Pacers. The Hawks got the best of the Suns that time. On Friday, Miami edged out the Wizards, and the Clippers continue their nice little hot streak. They beat the Pistons.
Yeah, the Clippers are just like the Lakers on their Granby road trip, and so far the Clippers have looked good. As I mentioned a few moments ago, the Clippers are 25-5 in their last 30 games. And on a long road trip like this, you need to beat teams that you're supposed to beat, and that's what they did against Detroit last Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the schedule for this week in the NBA. Starting tonight, Monday, you got the Lakers continuing their road trip against the Hornets at 6. You got the Kings also continue their road trip against the Cavs at 6. That should be an interesting one there. Dallas and Philadelphia at 6. The Clippers and the Hawks at 6:30. Golden State continue their East Coast trip at the Nets at 6:30. That's going to be on NBA TV. And Toronto meets the Pelicans at 7 o'clock.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, your schedule looks like this. Of course, we mentioned earlier the Minnesota Timberwolves will pay a visit to Chicago to take on the Bulls at the United Center. We have Houston going against Indiana in Indianapolis. The Mavericks at the Nets, Brooklyn Nets. That's the first game of that Tuesday night TNT doubleheader. We have the Magic and the Heat in the Battle of South Florida. We have Memphis at MSG to take on the New York Knicks. We have Oklahoma City Thunder at the Utah Jazz. That's an underrated game. People should watch out for that game. And, of course, the second half of that Tuesday night doubleheader on TNT at 9 o'clock, we'll have Milwaukee at Phoenix.
Should be a fun one. Very interesting. We'll see how Doc does against Phoenix. That's going to be interesting. Wednesday's matchups. That might be Doc calling. I don't know. Toronto and Charlotte at 6 o'clock. The Cavs and the Wizards. The first game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader. You got Golden State and Philadelphia. That seems a little. Atlanta and Boston at 6:30. San Antonio and Miami at 6:30. That should be interesting since Miami's been playing better lately against Wembanyama. The Clippers, they're back at home as they face the Pelicans. That's the second game of the ESPN doubleheader at 9. Also to Sacramento, they're back at home as well. They host Detroit at 9 o'clock as well.
And your schedule for Thursday looks like this. The Chicago Bulls will take on the Memphis Grizzlies in Grindtown. That's a road game for Chicago. The Warriors and Pacers will do battle. And the stadium formerly known as Conseco Fieldhouse. Orlando will host San Antonio. Cleveland will travel to Brooklyn to take on the Nets. The first game of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader will feature the New York Knicks hosting the Dallas Mavericks. That should be fun.
Yes.
Also, you have Milwaukee hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have Utah at Phoenix. The Nuggets and the Lakers will do battle. That's the second half of that Thursday night doubleheader on TNT. That's at 9 o'clock. And wrapping up the Thursday night schedule, we'll have Detroit taking on Portland, clearly the two worst teams in the NBA.
Yeah, going back to that Nuggets-Lakers game for a second, that should be a fun one because Lakers actually beat the Nuggets the last time. So that I'm sure Jokic, Murray, and the gang will definitely want their revenge. And that is your schedule for this week in the NBA as the Second City Sports. On Sports of Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Let's go. Let's stay with the hardwood. So let's go to the college hardwood. We're 6 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and of course Illinois got all they can handle from Nebraska. They beat the Cornhuskers 87-84 in overtime. Really, the main disparity was in the free throw line. Nebraska had 14 free throw attempts, while the Illini had 30. So I mean that was a little bit of a big discrepancy there. But still, I mean, well, Nebraska, if you're Nebraska, I think you need a road when you haven't won the road to Big Ten this year. You do play Northwestern later on this week, so I'm interested to see what you think about this game yesterday.
The Fire Atlanta, as usual, they fell in love with the 3-point shot. They shot the ball well early, but as the game went on, their percentages went down. But give Frank Hoiberg, the coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, credit. They guarded the 3-point line very well, which forced Illinois to change their game plan a little bit. So Illinois went to the inside game, and they benefited greatly, especially in that in that 5-minute extra session. The Fighting Illini had a plus 17 rebound advantage, 50-33. Even though they didn't shoot the ball well, on top of Illinois from the outside, they got most of their points from the inside. Coleman Hawkins led the club with 20 points. I really like that Kinsey Coman-Nega guy from Nebraska. He can really make plays. Not only he can shoot it, but he's a playmaker. He could drive the ball to the basket as well. So the Fighting Illini, they made the big plays when they had to, as we talked about plenty of times with the show, Lakina. The return of Terrence Shannon Jr. has really sparked that Fighting Illini ball club. Also, to Ty Rogers, really contributing very well. Don't forget about Gurrier, their starting power forward. He really made some big plays last night. So Brad Underwood has his team rolling at 17-5 right now, and they have a tough stretch coming up. I know they play at I believe it's on the road at Michigan State next Saturday afternoon. We'll talk more about that game on Friday's show. But Illinois has a pretty tough schedule the next couple of weeks from now to the end of the season. I think they can finish up nicely, but I hope they learned the lesson from last night's game. When you're not shooting well, as you mentioned about the free throw discrepancies, get to the basket, and that's what the Illini did.
Yeah, that 3-point line, they were 9 for 34, I should say, from the three. So we'll be interested to see if they can kind of, because they do have a tough schedule the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Arizona, no trouble with Stanford. Purdue, I saw a little bit. This game is aired on CBS. They pulled away from Wisconsin, 75-69. Loyola, Chicago. That's They're on top of the A10. They had no trouble with Davidson. They beat them by 13. Villanova beat Providence. So going into Saturday's games, they talk about statement Saturday, and there were a lot of teams that made statement games. UConn pulled away from St. John's. North Carolina, no trouble with Duke. Armando Bacot Jr. had 25 points for North Carolina. They basically dominated from start to finish. Harrison Bynum had Ingram, I should say, had a double-double himself. He had 21 points and 13 boards. So, North Carolina kind of dominated this game from jump.
Yeah, don't forget about Jared McCann for Duke. He had 23 points to lead the Blue Devils. But like you mentioned, Lakina, North Carolina dominated this game from start to finish. Both teams shot it well at 50%, but North Carolina got hot at the 3-point line. They shot it at a 37.5% clip. They out-rebounded Duke by 1. But it was the turnovers that was the difference in this game. North Carolina took care of the basketball. They only committed 5 turnovers. Duke committed 11.
Yeah, that was the defense for North Carolina has been really solid this year, and they're now the top of the ACC right now. Going to the Big 12, another big game. Kansas held off. Well, they pulled away from Houston, 78-65. Hunter Dickinson had 20 points, I should say, for the Jayhawks, and Kevin McCullough Jr. had 17 points. He's been back from came back from injury, so that he was a big get to sort of spruce up that depth for Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas. I watched some of this game via my TV screen. Kansas really dominated the ball inside. Houston, they couldn't shoot it at all, whether it was from 3 or from 2-point range. They couldn't get anything going, and they were out rebounded minus 16. Minus 16 advantage. Kansas out rebounded them 40-24. So Kansas did what they had to do. They built up a big lead in that first half. Houston did try to make a run out of it, but they didn't have enough firepower. They turned the ball. Even though Kansas did turn the ball over a lot, Houston just could knock shots down, and Kansas did what they had to do from the inside. So that's why Kansas won big. And as we said before, Lakina, with all systems of go, which will be led by Hunter Dickerson, in my opinion, you still have KJ Adams there. But as long as you feed the big beast inside Hunter Dickerson, I think Kansas is going to be okay.
Yeah, they should be fine. But like I said, though, that depth, though, hopefully that's not going to be an issue for them as we get closer and closer to March. But a nice win for Kansas. They're now with Texas. We'll talk about Texas Tech in a second. But yeah, but then with them losing, they're now back at the top of the Big 12. On the SEC, the tops there. Tennessee went into Rupp Arena, which look that's where the 80 team wins there. But Zakai Ziegler had 26 points and 13 assists as he leads the way for the Vols. As all 5 stars were double figures for the Vols as they beat Kentucky 103-92. A really nice. A really good, solid team win for Rick Barnes and crew.
Oh, congratulations to them. I'm sorry I didn't watch this game because I was watching the NBA, but Calipari lost. Yay!
Oh,
you know I had to bust it now, Lakita.
That goes back years ago, folks, so don't worry about that. But besides Jordan James also had 26 for Tennessee. So yeah, really solid showing there. Marquette, no trouble with Georgetown. Baylor, more battles in the Big Ten. Baylor edged out Iowa State 70-68. So going with the theme here of the Big 12, Cincinnati upset Texas Tech 75-72. Auburn held off Ole Miss, no trouble there. San Diego State got a nice little, well, I don't want to say upset because they were in the top. They've been in the top of the 2, but they got the best of Utah State. Florida Atlantic, no trouble with Tulsa. BYU, once again, no trouble with West Virginia. UCF, Johnny Dawkins and this guy put together a nice little resume. They've now have added Oklahoma as their latest upset victim in the Big 12.
Let's go back to locally, Lakina. Let's give some love to the SIU Saluki, Southern Illinois, for those who scoring at home. They got a big win at UIC on Saturday, 74-71. Xavier Johnson for the Salukis had 29 points off of 5 of 15 shooting, including 18 of 20 from the free throw line. Shout out to our good friend Jonathan Hood, aka J Hood from ESPN 1000. I know he's the voice of the UIC Flames that really had a tough go at it this year. UIC is now 8-15 on the year, while SIU is 15-8, right in the thick of things in that Missouri Valley Conference.
They were like in second or third, I think, in the Missouri Valley. They're kind of like right there. So with only being one bit, I think you want to try to get things going there as it gets closer and closer to the Arch Madness, as they call it down there in St. Louis. So really good win for Brian Warder and the crew there. Alabama, no trouble with Mississippi State. Texas outdueled TCU. Again, going with the theme here with the Big 12 teams. But I want to give a shout out to South Carolina. They beat Georgia. They got a nice little resume. They've beaten Kentucky. They've beaten Tennessee earlier last week. And look, Lamont Paris, this is his first year there, and he's already making a big difference.
Yeah, congratulations to them. Like you said, it was a big win. So we'll see what happens with their resume going forward. As we a little bit over a month away from March Madness, Lakina, about 7 weeks away, if my math is correct.
Yeah, about 6 weeks. Yeah, 6
weeks away. So we'll see. That's going to be important come tournament time. Back to the Big Ten basketball, of course. Northwestern had a tough loss in overtime at Purdue last Wednesday night. They had another one last Saturday afternoon at Minnesota, 75-66. Boo Buie led Northwestern with 20 points, but I watched most of that overtime. Lakina, Northwestern wet the bed in overtime. Fatigue was starting to set in. They couldn't make their shots, and this is the second straight game which they played an extra session. You saw, as I mentioned, the fatigue set in. They did shoot the ball well from 3-point range. I'm talking about Northwestern at 47%, but they shot it overall at 38%. That's not going to get it done. And they had 17 turnovers. Some of that was due to fatigue in overtime. Minnesota came up big when they had to, especially in the extra session.
See, these are the kind of losses that'll cancel out some of those big losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Purdue loss. Well, we'll leave Purdue because they already beat Purdue this year. But this Minnesota team that's rebuilding, you lose to them. Now you got and also you got the loss of Chicago State. That's gonna be the kind of loss that come back to bite you in the butt too. I mean, it kind of evens out. So if you're Northwestern, you better try and finish strong in conference play, because those are the kind of losses that folks remember. So
yeah, they got a big game on Wednesday at home against Maryland. Nebraska. Sorry.
Nebraska,
so that's
yeah.
I'm not going to say this is obviously a big game for both teams, but I'm not going to sit here and say is it an elimination game, but you're starting to get that feel, especially the way the Wildcats have been playing these last two games.
Yeah, those are, like I said, the losses. Just not good. But I don't know what else can you say? Going back to Friday, Butler got their first big win in a couple of years. They upset Creighton in Omaha. That's not an easy place to play. They edged out the Blue Jays 98-98. Dayton gets back on track with beating St. Bonaventure. And yeah, that's it for Friday. So let's talk about this week's game, Sid.
All right, let's go to tonight's.
Oh, Memphis. Oh, yeah, I forgot Memphis. Shout out to our buddies for ODs. Memphis got a big game against Wichita State. They got a big win. David Jones hit a jumper with, I think it was about a couple of seconds left. Our buddies for ODs had to call for CBS. So I want to shout that out.
Yes, I did watch that game. Yeah, shout out to my guy Penny Harway in the Memphis Tigers. They did come back from 13 down to beat Wichita State. Wichita State has some nice players. I know they're not doing well this year, but a much-needed win in conference play for the Memphis Tigers as they end their 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, big win for them. Going to tonight's games, you got Miami and Virginia. Miami's kind of been struggling a little bit lately. Virginia has been up and down too. So nice ACC matchup at ESPN at 6 o'clock. Big Monday. Second game of that big Monday doubleheader. You got Kansas and Kansas State. The Sunflower battle, as I call it, at 8 o'clock on ESPN. And of course, this time of year, the ESPN network always has they showcase HBCU. So in this case, this week they have Southern and Jackson State at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. Also stream on ESPN Plus.
Oh, that's tonight?
Yep.
Perfect. We'll definitely check that out. Here's your schedule in the top 25 for Tuesday. We'll have Ole Miss traveling to South Carolina to take on the 15th-ranked Gamecocks. That's at 5:30 Chicago time, the SEC Network. Clemson will travel to number 3 North Carolina. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. This is important games for Tuesday.
Revenge.
Oklahoma State will travel to number 5 Houston to take on the Cougars. That's at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. And looking down the schedule here at 7:30 on FS1, Butler will take on number 1 UConn. You mentioned Kentucky after that big loss on Saturday to Tennessee. They'll take on Vanderbilt at 7:30. That's on the SEC Network. And number 24 San Diego State will take on Air Force. That's at 9:30 on FS1.
Number 25, New Mexico and Wyoming. That's at 7:30. That's not on TV, but I'm sure it's going to be streaming somewhere. ESPN at 8 o'clock tomorrow. You got Texas Tech and number 25 Texas, number 23 Texas Tech, I should say, and number 13 Baylor. Number 22 Utah State will try to bounce back from that loss yesterday as they face, on Saturday, I should say, as they face Nevada. And we talk about the St. Mary's and Pacific. That's at 10 o'clock on ESPN2. And of course, I want to give a shout out to South Carolina. They're back in the top 25 for the first time since 2017. Actually, I think that's the year they went to the Final Four, I believe. So, like I said, Lamont Paris doing a great job with that program. Now going into Wednesday's games, Tennessee, we'll see if they can avoid the letdown after that big win against Kentucky. They face LSU. That's going to be at 6 o'clock. Network. Wisconsin home to bounce back from that loss to Purdue. They face Michigan at 6 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. The Iron Bowl, no matter how you look at it, Alabama, they face Auburn at 6 o'clock on ESPN2. It should be a nice little battle there. Villanova Xavier on FS1. Let's see, anything else of note? Gonzaga hosts Portland, home to bounce back from the loss to St. Mary's on Saturday. Duke also hoping to bounce back from their loss on Saturday to North Carolina. They face Notre Dame. They host Notre Dame at Cameron Indoor. Crane, again, hoping to bounce back from their loss to Butler. They face Providence on FS2 at 7:30. You talk about that big game with Northwestern as they host Nebraska. Nebraska need a really big Big Ten road win. So maybe Northwest could help them there.
Yeah, Nebraska's 0-6 on the road in Big Ten play this year.
Yeah, they definitely need this win. The Fighting Mike Burmers, as we call it, in Missouri, they've had a little bit of a struggle this year. They host Texas A&M at 8 on ESPN2, and USC, after they've had a tough season so far, they face Cal on the Pac-12 network at 10 o'clock.
Okay, 2 big games for Thursday. In the top 25, we'll have number 8 Arizona and Utah. That's at 7 o'clock Chicago time on the Pac-12 network. And at 8 o'clock on ESPN2, we'll have number 20 Florida Atlantic University. They'll take on UAB. That's University of Alabama, Birmingham.
That should be a fun one. UAB upset Memphis earlier about a week ago. So yeah, should be a fun one there. And that is your schedule for this week in college hoops. Some big games coming up with just a few weeks away from March Madness.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead as you're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the first in the month of February, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. The NFL coaching carousel continues to spin. Now it's starting to stop. Will the Super Bowl ever be and will be aired on pay-per-view? ? And we'll have a whole lot more in our special edition of Old School TV Monday as we kick off Black History Month. That and a whole lot more with Miss Lakina McGee. I am Cindy Brown. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports Theme Monday edition, the first in the month of February. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't go again, IG.
We have 50 minutes left or so in this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can get Sports Zone Chicago live in the 11 color on Roku TV.
All right, Sid. Some of the coaching picture in the NFL is getting a little bit clearer. And we'll start with some of the stuff that was officially announced over the weekend. Dan Quinn, who this is going to be his second time in the head coaching ranks, he has become the new head coach over down in D.C. We're just outside D.C. with the Commanders. And, of course, him and Adam Peters, he's been named the new GM over there as well. So, but it's been the coordinating changes that have folks here are buzzing. Sid, tell everyone about it.
For the Washington Commanders, yep. Of course, now they have a new offensive coordinator named Cliff Kingsbury. Of course, his name was floated around in these parts for the new Bears OC. Of course, Shane Wanderer has that position. But Lakina, since you set me up, I'll ask this question to you and to our viewers and listening audience on Sports Zone Chicago. You can type in your thoughts on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page and Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Now that Cliff Kingsbury is the new OC for the Washington Commanders, does this mean that they'll move up to draft Caleb Williams, or will the Bears draft Caleb Williams and trade him to Washington? There's a couple of scenarios that are in play here.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard people say, or everyone say, well, he congratulated him on his new job. Well, yeah, that's his coach and mentor. I mean, of course, I know people want to kind of like do a little microscope about like every little thing he does. I'm talking about Caleb Williams, but I mean, he was just giving his coach congratulations. So what? Whatever. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Adam Peters, like I said, he's a GM now. It's gonna be interesting to see how he decides all this. I mean, do they do kind of the switcheroo or do they like Drake May? Do they like Jaden Daniels? I'm sure Cliff Kingsbury will have a lot to say on that as well. So yeah, I just don't. Well, I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of like definitely various rumors and stuff like that. Any windows like it's gonna be a long 2.5 months, folks. I don't know what to tell y'all, but I'm not. Like I said, I think right now, I think nothing really will change anything. I just don't see it happening, at least right now. Now, if it gets closer, if it gets closer and closer, especially since there was supposedly that report that came out that says that the Bears don't want to trade. If they do trade Fields, or then they're not going to trade with the NFC, if you believe that rumor. So I don't know, but yeah, it'll be interesting what happens. Like I said, it'll be interesting what Peters decides here.
And which now that if you heard the news earlier today, Lakina, since Dan Quinn is now the new head coach of the Washington Commanders, the defensive coordinator spot is open for the Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry Jones, who's not short of words in front of the media, he says he's going to try to make a big splash. Do you think could it be Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, which I think is a step down for him after coaching New England for 25 years? I'm not going to say Pete Carroll, no, because of age, but if you're Jerry Jones, do you look in-house for someone to fill that position? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, you got Vrabel sitting out there. He's still out there on the market with no job, and I think even though this wouldn't be a step down for him because he did it for about like 6 or 7 years before, of course, he became Titans head coach. So I think he might have the go at it. I don't see, especially with all the rumors and stuff, I don't think that's going to happen with Belichick. I think if you're Belichick, I think you'd rather sit out for the rest of for the season, just to see kind of like how the carousel and the merry-go-round for next year. There could be some jobs opening up as well next year. So if you want to kind of buy your time, if that's what he wants to do. So yeah, I don't see it. I think Vrabel gets a coordinator job before Belichick does.
And speaking of a coordinator job, let's go to Las Vegas, the site of this week's Super Bowl between the 49ers and Chiefs. But their whole-time team, Las Vegas Raiders, made it higher. They have a new offensive coordinator, and his name is, you can't make this stuff up, folks, Luke Getsky.
I said this. My apologies to Raiders fans in advance. Like I said, we don't know what happened with the Kingsbury. I know there was discussions that he was gonna get the job, but I don't know if it was money or talks. Nobody really knows. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does. I mean, we'll see. The QB room is you got Aiden O'Connell. I don't know if Jimmy G is gonna come back next year. I don't see that happening. But it'll be interesting down there. And look, I guess I don't know. I want to see how all that transpired.
Here's the thing, look, I like Antonio Pierce. His players played hard for him this past season, which landed him that job. But the Raiders need a new quarterback, and you mentioned the names for Drake May and Jaden Daniels, and I don't think they're going to trade with the Chicago Bears. I don't think they have enough draft capital left, even if they wanted to do it. So Luke Getsky, I know that the Green Bay's running the same system as he did here in Chicago last year, but Green Bay has better players. The Bears don't. I know Las Vegas has Devontae Adams for now, but
mm-hmm.
I'm at a loss for words, to be honest with you. I am. Here's our guy Kez, the Canuck, checking in. Thanks for checking in, Kez.
What's up,
yeah,
Kez?
he has a question here on our screen. What do you think the Getsy hire means with respect to the league's view of Justin Fields?
I mean, well, look, do the Raiders have draft capital for the Bears? The Bears will want. I mean, I think that's going to be sort of like the thing here. And I mean, look, if you're Ryan Poles, I mean, I know there was this rumor that they don't want to trade him within the division, but I mean, if you're if you're the Bears, do the Raiders have anything that you would want? I don't know.
I would say get Max Crosby, but that's going to cost some Bears some draft picks. The Bears do have more draft capital than the Raiders do, but if you're the Raiders, so you're trying to build something here, I don't think they're that far away, but I don't think they're going to give up Max Crosby. He's I believe their franchise player because he's one of the best defensive ends in the league, so I don't think that's going to happen. If you're the Bears, you would ask for him, but I don't think the Raiders are going to give him up. So being realistic, I don't know. I would ask for Devontae Adams, but I don't know if the Raiders are going to give him up either because the Bears need another wide receiver. I know you have DJ Moore, but Darnell Mooney, he's going to be gone. You got that rookie Tyler Scott. Okay, he looked nice in a couple of games this year. Okay, Velus Jones, he could be playing out of a job sooner rather than later. And if you don't draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or that wide receiver out of University of Washington, I can't think of his name right now. I've been on him the last. I've been on him for the last couple of weeks of the college football season. So if you don't get one of those guys, would Ryan Poles make a big move to get a veteran wide receiver? Who knows?
I think that Poles has a lot to think about. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what he does. And Seattle, they don't have a new head coach in Mike McDonald, the former DC over with the Baltimore Ravens. So what do you think about that hire?
Whew. Pretty interesting hire for Baltimore, as we talked about on the show. They had a nice season, but their defense is a very good defense. But they went to bed against Kansas City. Their offense is struggled running the football. So I know that part of that was due to injuries, but Baltimore, hopefully they can close the gap between themselves and the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, because what they put out in the AFC title game is not them. They try to rump up the Chiefs, and that's not their game. So we'll see what happens with Baltimore. Let's see if they can get Lamar Jackson back on track next year.
Yeah, they've already hired their new DC. I'm talking about Baltimore. Then Zachary Orr, who actually played for Baltimore, of course, before the injuries shortened his career, but he's been there as a coordinator. I think he was a D-line coach there for a couple of years. Now he gets a big job with Baltimore, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, some interesting hires there for Philadelphia. They've got some new coordinators and some old names. You got Vic Fangio, a name, of course, familiar here in Chicago, and Kellen Moore is a new OC. So, what do you think about those names for those jobs?
Both those guys are veteran coaches. I think they'll bring a lot to that team that is looking to win now. We all talk about the struggles of Jalen Hurts this past season, partially due to that finger injury at the end of the year. But let's be honest, Lakina, Philadelphia couldn't run the ball with any consistency all year. You have like 5-6 running backs on the roster. You can't decide on who's going to have the hot hand. Of course, you had that mystery of Devontae Smith last year. I know he was injured, then playing that playoff loss against Tampa. You still have A.J. Brown, who they traded for before the start of last year. He paid off great dividends for them. But, it's all about getting Jalen Hurts back healthy and having him be happy with Kellen Moore's new system. So it's going to be a question is how and when can Jalen Hurts adjust to Kellen Moore's system.
That's going to be very interesting, and we'll see. Look, there'll be new guys to blame, though, for Eagles fans if things go south down there over there in Philadelphia. We'll see what happens there. Now, going a little bit further south, going to the NFC South, Carolina's found their new head coach in Dave Canales, who, as we've been saying for the last few weeks, I should say, Geno Smith, kind of had a resurgence under him, and Baker Mayfield had a resurgence this past season under him. So, backstory aside, Google's your friend for that one. Now, him and Dan Morgan, things going to get very interesting down there in Charlotte. The new GM, I should say, Dan Morgan, I should say.
Yeah, and this is where the process begins, Lakina. We all know we saw the struggles of Bryce Young this past season. Not all of it is his fault. One, Carolina has a bad offensive line. Number two, you have no talent. DJ Moore, who was their other outstanding offensive player, he's here in Chicago now. So you saw what he did for the Bears this year. But Carolina still needs to build, like any other football team, build within the interior. You need a strong offensive line. You need a pass rusher. They need just about everything. You need a running back. You definitely need a wide receiver. So this process is going to be long and hard for Carolina fans, but this is where it all starts. It starts in the draft.
Well, let's see if everyone's on the same page there, unlike last season.
Right. Let that owner get out the way and let your people you hired cook.
Yeah, exactly. Ken Dorsey's been officially named the new OC over at Cleveland. Jacques Cesaire is the new D-line coach over there in Cleveland. Jeff Hafley is now, of course, a former Boston College head coach. For those of you scoring at home, he is new DC over at Green Bay.
Yeah, I saw that the Green Bay news a couple hours ago before we started live broadcasting here. I think that's going to be interesting for Green Bay because, as we talked about this past season, Lakina, Green Bay's defense is not bad. It's not like it was when Matt LaFleur got there a few years ago, but it's doable enough in today's NFL. But I wanted to go back. Shoot, now my brain is blanking on me about the Jesus Christ. But I'll finish up my Carolina point. Not Carolina. I'll finish up the Green Bay point. Green Bay's defense is not bad, but considering all the talent that you have within the NFC North, whether it's Caleb Williams or Justin Fields next year for the Bears, we'll see what Minnesota does with their new quarterback if they do not bring back Kirk Cousins. Detroit Lions is the team to beat next year. You got to have guys got to defend that offense and Jared Goff at quarterback. So Green Bay, I think it obviously is an interesting hire, but can they get that one more impact player on defense? Because you're going to face good talent in this division offensively for the next few years.
It'll be interesting, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing how that defense, because it's still very young. So remember, the Packers had the youngest team in the league, I should say. So yeah, there's there's some talent there. You just got to mold it, and hopefully Mr. Hafley can do that. Now, did you want to talk about Ken Dorsey being the new OC?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, thank you. That's why you have partners, folks, because sometimes you lose it. But yeah, Ken Dorsey, you go from Josh Allen to Deshaun Watson. Congratulations.
Yeah.
We know what a great job that Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, did this past year. Well, winning at least one game or more with 4 different quarterbacks. You saw what Joe Flacco did minus that playoff game this past season against Houston. But Deshaun Watson, remember, he didn't look that great before he got injured. So it's going to take time to see how Deshaun Watson, first of all, gets back healthy. And number two, how long it's going to take him to adjust to Ken Dorsey's system, because you saw what Ken Dorsey's system was. Let your quarterback run more than your running backs. I don't like that, especially with the team that the Buffalo Bills had. So how much running will Deshaun Watson do, especially with him being hurt the last couple of years? I don't think that'll be a great idea, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I know Sid's going to be tearing. Well, he's bald, but I know Sid's going to be tearing whatever something out. If it ends up that being the case, the QB ends up being the leading rusher. I know you hated that when Doris was over there in Buffalo. And of course, a couple more names. I guess last but not least, Jim Harbaugh, of course. The official, with the Chargers, that's going to be interesting next year. We talked about that. Anything else before we move on?
About the Los Angeles Chargers, real quick, Lakina. Of course, Jim Harbaugh is their new head coach. If it wasn't for Justin Herbert being there, Harbaugh would be coaching somewhere else. But the Chargers, as we talked about on our last few shows, they have work to do because of Justin Herbert's contract, which they signed it to before the start of this season. They're going to have some salary cap work ahead of them. Of course, I'm sure they're going to cut Khalil Mack. They're going to cut a couple of other guys on that defensive front. And so we'll see how they micromanage that, and we'll see what they do in the draft to replace those potential players they're going to cut this between now and the draft.
Yeah, I think they're about like 55 million up against the cap. We're talking about the Chargers. So yeah, they're going to get rid of a lot of money. Keenan Allen might be, on his way out among a few others. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, but I think, look, we know Jim Harbaugh has won every place he went. So that he's been at. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if he can kind of build that, because they may not have to tear it all down, but you got to think that they will have to make some changes. They have to put some holes in certain places. They listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakita Big E, Sydney Brown with you. Okay, so we got Super Bowl 58 that's going to be commencing in Las Vegas on Sunday. Both the 49ers and the Chiefs are there. They're both staying far away from the Strip. I think that the Chiefs are about 20 miles away, and I know that the 49ers are about 25 miles away. And even where they're playing at, it's about like 10, 12 miles away from the Strip too. So no foolishness there, hopefully. But you raised an interesting question before we started recording. So Sid, tell everybody what you asked.
I first of all, I read the article from Richard Deutsch from The Athletic earlier today about there's been this talk over the last few years with the NBA will be the fourth major sport in North America to have some games exclusively on the streaming service when their national TV contract is up after next season. But there's been this talk about the Super Bowl with the cord cutting has been going on. I believe average of 5 million homes in the United States over the last several years. It's going to be almost closer to a decade within the next year or two that people are cording exclusively watching shows and sports through streaming services. Will the Super Bowl be exclusively streamed anytime soon? Me personally, I don't see it because broadcast TV is available on these streaming services, and with these networks paying big time money to the NFL, I don't see an exclusive deal in our lifetime to put the Super Bowl on quote unquote pay-per-views on the exclusive streaming service. Now, I think what CBS is doing, I think Nickelodeon is going to have their own broadcast, but it's not on the streaming service. It's not going to be the main broadcast. Right. So you're not going to see that there for next Sunday. But it just doesn't make any sense, Lakina. I know these companies think it will drive up demand. I'm using air quotes here, but as I said before, someone said in one of the comments that the article that I read from The Athletic this morning, broadcast TV is still available through the streaming service. So in my opinion, you will cut your nose to spite your face to put the Super Bowl exclusively on pay-per-view TV. If you're going to do that, you're going to entice me that you're going to have different camera views, different commentary, just like if you I think for those that order the NFL Sunday ticket package, they give you also other options to watch games, via the next gen stats cam, especially for Thursday night football, things along that line. If you offer that, I that's fine, but exclusively to put it on pay-per-view, I just don't see it happening, Lakina. I just don't.
Yeah, and still you're making money. As long as the NFL is making money through broadcast, it's still like the Super Bowls are taking over. I think there was a stat out there. There was like 25 of the 25 like the top 30 shows of all time are now Super Bowls, especially within the recent years, the last 5 years, especially the last decade, if you want to go that far. and I'm sure this will probably break a lot of records this Sunday as well. So yeah, I think it's just kind of silly to say, oh well, you know what, people are just going to go to streaming. But look, I think people, like you said, the broadcast networks are available through streaming anyway. So if you have Pluto TV, if you have Samsung TV Plus or any other, or Roku TV, you've got a lot of those. A lot of those are free. Well, most of them, and you can get it through there. So it wouldn't be like you're losing it. And in some cases, the only thing you need is just to download on your device. And if you're the NFL, I know maybe 10, 15 years down the line, you might think about that, but your bread and butter is in the broadcast networks. And if you try to stream it, if you put it on Paramount Plus or Hulu or Amazon, I know Amazon's been wanting to get into this. I just think that you're not going to get a lot of people to kind of buy into, oh, do I have to sign up for like $8.99 for this or that? Even some of the streaming services are going up. So, you're kind of like stuck in a rock and a hard place. You're in the NFL. I know a lot of people saw the Peacock, that game on Peacock between the Dolphins and the Chiefs a few weeks ago, but even still, that was kind of like a deterrent as well. So yeah, it's just kind of silly that they're even thinking about that this is even being talked about. Now, maybe about 10 or 15 years they may do it, but I think right now there really is no point in doing it.
Yeah, especially with that new TV deal that the NFL signed with these networks. I believe it lasts throughout the next decade. So, and you don't forget you don't forget about this angle, gambling, especially with the Super Bowl being in Vegas this year. I know still not every state you can gamble legally, but you have to consider those sponsors like DraftKings and FanDuel, who has a big hand in this as well. People watch the games, especially if you're a casual fan, to bet on these games. So you have to take that in consideration as well. So with this new current TV contract, I don't see that happening. Maybe in the next one you may consider it, but it depends on where we are. Will linear TV, i.e. cable satellite, go away completely? If that's the case, then yeah, you have no choice but to put it on the exclusive streaming service. But as long as linear/cable satellite TV is still around, I don't think it's going to be possible to put the Super Bowl exclusively on pay-per-view TV. It just wouldn't make any sense, not right now. And like you say, you will have to consider it definitely 10 to 15 years down when we see what this landscape of television is like, because it's constantly changing. It's changing fast.
Right, and as long as the networks are willing to pay that money, and as long as they get that money back, and you saw what happened with the ratings this year for the regular season, both NBC and CBS, and even ABC and ESPN with them simulcasting Monday Night Football, and NBC too, they all saw ratings go up. So it's not happening anytime soon.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports All Chicago. I'm Sid. That was Lakina. You have any thoughts on that subject? Should the Super Bowl, or will we ever see the Super Bowl be on pay-per-view in the near future? You can go to Sports All Chicago's Facebook page or Sports All Chicago YouTube. Type in your opinions or thoughts there. We'll put them up on the screen for you on the flip side of this radio. Lakina, I know that you checked out the NHL All-Star game in the Pro Bowl games. We'll get your reviews on that. The White Sox make a couple of moves. What does this mean for Dylan Cease in his future? And we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday as we kick off Black History Month. That and a whole lot more. You stay right there. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition of Sports Soul Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, But one of these days, a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Moving right along this Monday afternoon as you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
This is our last break of the show for today, so we have less than 25 minutes left or so in this extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. If you have any questions or comments for us, I know a few of you chimed in already. You can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so we're going to give us some baseball news. You got pitchers and catchers coming in a few weeks, and spring training starts in about a week after that. So, but the White Sox made some news over the weekend. A couple of big trades. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Gregory Santos, your closer from last year after Liam Hendricks went down. He is gone. He was traded to the Seattle Mariners in exchange for Priyana Barora and Alfred Zach Deloach. Of course, the White Sox also made another move to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They traded Christian Mena, I should say, to the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for the damn computer, Dominic Fletcher. Dominic Fletcher. So for the White Sox, Chris Getz, I know he's trying to build up the competitive roster for this year, but Lakina, here's the thing. I think that, as I said before, we don't know what the White Sox are going to look like in spring training. Of course, we'll all find out together coming up in late February, early March. But I know Getz said that he didn't like this team, and rightfully so. But I'm not going to say this is a full tear down because it's not. But I think the White Sox, let me repeat again, if their long-term plan is to compete in 2025, this is the way to go. But who's gonna be on your starting staff outside of Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech? There's still a lot of starting pitchers out there, and basically, if you want to try out for the team, Lakina, go ahead. If any of our listeners and viewers want to go try out for the White Sox, go ahead. But for the short term, Lakina, I don't know where this season is going for this franchise. You cannot afford to quote unquote tank or lose 100 games. It's not going to do anything for you. And I think they're going to try to compete in 2025. But as far as this year is concerned, as of right now, it doesn't look good. As we've been saying ever since the end of last season, Lakina, especially with, I think you mentioned it on we may have talked about it on Friday's show, but with Corbin Burns now being traded to the Baltimore Orioles, Dylan Cease is not going there, at least for the time being. So the White Sox are going to have him for at least through the first half of this year.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see because we know Baltimore that the team was at the top of the list. So, but now, of course, they got Corbin Burns. So, that's going to be kind of a fallout there. It'll be interesting to see what other teams out there that, like, I'm sure Guess would love to trade Cease, but I don't know if he wants to. I'm sure he's not just going to give him to any team. I think you'll be interested to see what the news are going to be once the season starts. I've heard Toronto's name is now being thrown around as well. So it'll be interesting to see if when and if Guess decide that maybe is that something he wants to do.
Yeah, in a perfect world, Lakina, and especially as a White Sox fan, I would like to see Dylan Cease be re-signed, but that's something just the White Sox don't do, unfortunately, especially under the ownership of Jerry Reinsdorf and crew. But I think that Chris Getz is playing this right. I know the price is set up high for Dylan Cease, and I get it, but I think Chris Getz is doing this right, doing this thing right. You don't want to give Dylan Cease away for nothing, and this as well as I do, especially come July 31st at the trade deadline. Teams are going to have injuries, and pitching is usually the first things that come to mind, and these teams will get desperate at the trade deadline. So I think Chris Getz is sitting at a perfect spot as far as getting what he thinks that he wants and needs for this team. So as we said before, Dylan Cease is not going anywhere, at least not as of right now. He'll be your opening day starter on March 28th when the Sox face the Detroit Tigers at home. So, but after that, we'll have to see how Dylan Cease does. Can he stay healthy? He's been healthy for the most part throughout his White Sox career, and can he get back some of that talent, that magic that we witnessed in 2022, where he took that big jump from the previous year when the White Sox made the playoffs. So there's the other angles of this that we had to keep in mind as well.
Something to look for as the season starts. Well, the spring training starts in a couple of weeks now. Going to the north side for the Cubs, it looks like Cody Bellinger, I guess, looks like he might finally be making this decision because all the rumors are that it's going to be the Cubs, but I guess they're working on the finances and whatever. So we'll see what happens there. Also, too, could it be maybe perhaps getting Matt Chapman as well? Rumors are it's between the Cubs and the Giants, because remember Bob Melvin's back over there now with the Giants. So I'm looking forward to see what Chapman does. And it looks like like I said, it looks like I've said this a few weeks ago. It looks like maybe Jed Hoyer might have something up his sleeve. So if he can get one or both of them, I think that would be great if you're a Cubs fan.
Yeah, if you get both of them, especially at the price that you want, this would be great news for the Cubs. As I said, excuse me, throughout this offseason, the NL Central is up for grabs. We know what the most of Milwaukee Brewers have made. I know St. Louis is trying to patch things up after a terrible year last year. Of course, Cincinnati, I believe, is that team on the rise, especially after they brought up De La Cruz last year. He made that jump from the minor leagues, and they gave that Cincinnati Reds ball club that jump that they need. They were competitive. Even though they didn't make the deal at the trade deadline, they were right there as far as qualifying for the playoffs. So we know what Pittsburgh gets. So that I'm not going to say it's the Cubs' division to lose on paper. It may seem that way, but if they get both Chapman and Bellinger, this team could be on the roll. And if Hoyer has another move up his sleeve, you need to cheer up that starting rotation as well.
Definitely got to beef up that starting rotation. Maybe look, there's still a lot of guys out there, so even a lot of mid-tier guys. So I think if you're the Cubs, you got a nice, especially now that spring training is coming up soon. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do here. As the Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Let's just get it out the way, Sid, because I saw let's start with the Pro Bowl first, NFL Pro Bowl games. I saw a little bit of it. It was more like just to kill time because I really had nothing else to watch yesterday. But you saw how both teams, both Eli Manning for the NFC, Peyton Manning for the AFC. NFC edged out the AFC. They made some big plays in the flag football game. They dominated the skills events. That took a war between with Aiden Hudson and Dexter Lawrence leading the way for the NFC. It was just crazy. That was over like about 10 minutes, but. I kind of like the idea of it. They weren't going to do the whole Smash Mouth thing anymore because they weren't going to do that. I don't mind this setup because of the fact that look, it's just supposed to be fun and entertaining. So I know people are like, but the Rangers were pretty good for those games this weekend. So
yeah, we called it a couple of years ago, Lakina. They needed to do something like this. So look what happens, as you mentioned there. The ratings have gone up the first couple of years that they have done this format. So, it's about the celebration of the game, but mostly the celebration of the great athletes we have playing football. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Oh, here's what I wanted to say about that. The only clip I saw it on Instagram this morning. Jalen Johnson made an incredible interception.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah,
I was trying to send a message to Ryan Post, pay me.
Yeah, that was a flag football. So that just that mindset there. But so it was a really pretty entertaining weekend over there in Vegas. So really very well done by well producing. The guys really got into it. So I think it's like this is 2 in a row. I think Eli's team has won both of these Pro Bowl games they started doing this. So I mean, this is going to be interesting here now in Toronto for the NHL All-Star game. It was all Team Austin Matthews as they the way it's set it up. It was McKinnon and Nathan McKinnon, who's having a great season for the Avalanche, and of course Team Connor McDavid, who won the skills competition. McDavid got the best of that, and then Team Matthews beat Jack Hughes' team. And then it was between Team McDavid and Team Matthews. Team Matthews got the best of Team McDavid. They're pretty interesting the format, how it works. I know they kind of had it strode up a little bit. They did the division thing last year, but then they decided to do the team thing like they did, similar to what the NBA does, having the players be the captains. So I saw a little bit of it. I thought it was fine. Like I said, it was great to see Connor Bedard there. In the middle of the skills competition to kind of get him a little bit involved. He'll have his chances for years to come. But I thought it was fun. I mean, look, I wish they had promoted a little bit more. I wish it was on Warner Bros. Discovery, but it really wasn't promoted a lot. So
they had the actual game on ABC, which was in the middle of the Saturday afternoon. Like you said, they could have promoted it a little bit more. Maybe you would have had a few more people watch. I know you would have a lot more watching in Chicago if Connor Bedard was healthy, but that just wasn't the case. But I've been saying this for years, and I'll say it again. I don't want to waste my energy on Commissioner Gary Bettman. Their problem is they have one of the most exciting sports in North America. I know the NFL is number 1. It's not going anywhere. The NBA is at number 2. They're not going anywhere either. The NHL is a great game to watch. It's better to watch in person than it is at home. But we have such dynamic athletes like that, and you don't promote them enough. You just sit on your butt and just think that the sports is just going to sell itself, especially in today's times. You're crazy.
This would have been a perfect time for them to promote the sport. I know, the game was on ABC, but I don't think, like I said, it was in the middle of college hoops. No one really knew it was on. I mean, I actually forgot. Thankfully, I had it recorded because I forgot it was on. So, they should have been promoted a little bit better. But that's been the NHL's problem like the last 15 years. It feels like. I mean, you got a great generation. You've got guys like Connor McDavid. I mentioned, Nathan McKinnon's had a great season this year for the Avs, like I mentioned. Jack Hughes and Austin Matthews, and you got some of the big, the big 6, the original 6 teams are near the top right now. The Rangers have been playing very well. Boston's been playing very well. Vancouver, I mean, it's kind of crazy that this is not. No one's really talking about the NHL that much. It seems like, I know ESPN does, of course, that they're the TV right. But it just feels like more should be going on to kind of help promote the sport. I know they did it the whole puck, red zone or blue zone, whatever they called it, and also too, of course, the games being on Hulu Live. But it's just they need to be doing more. I think.
I would counter your point with this question, Lakina. Speaking of stars like Austin Matthews, who's originally from America, but he's playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Connor McDavid, who's Canadian, but he's playing for the Edmonton Oilers, who's playing for the hottest team in the NHL right now. I think it's 16 or 17 straight wins in a row. That's just amazing. But do you think it hurts the NHL that those two guys are not playing for American teams?
You hope it is. You hope it's not, but I would be surprised. They were playing in Boston. Boston playing very well. I'm sure they'd probably get more attention if one were playing for the Rangers, probably. But I think they were playing for Toronto, maybe. I know Vancouver's been playing very well. Not in the original 16, but I know Vancouver's been around for years. So Rick Tocchet has his guys playing very well at the right now, the Canucks. So I don't know. I would hope that's not the case, but yeah, maybe it is. I don't know.
Because I know Toronto's a big hockey market, a historic hockey city, even though it's in Canada. But like I said, Connor McDavid, I know Edmonton's a rich franchise. I know they won Stanley Cups with the great Gretzky back in the early to mid '80s. But the reason why I posed that question, because like you said, with the teams like the Boston Bruins doing well, New York Rangers, not the Islanders, but the Rangers, if those guys were on those two teams, or if they were on Chicago, even though Chicago's not winning right now, if they were on the Blackhawks, I think they would get a little bit more pub, because those are your top three markets in the United States as far as hockey is concerned.
And the Avs just won the Stanley Cup, so you would think that Nathan McKinnon, especially after everything he's been doing, breaking all types of records, you would think that he'd get more attention. But okay. I have nothing to say. I have got nothing. Like I said, I don't want to waste my energy talking about Batman. It's a waste of time. But I don't know.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. Old School TV Monday, the special edition kicking off Black History Month is coming up in a bit. Lakina, I don't know if you saw this news over the weekend, going back to baseball, but the Cleveland Guardians, the world champion Texas Rangers, and the Minnesota Twins are re-signed to their Bally Sports regional deals for this upcoming 2024 season. Of course, I don't know if we talked about this, Lakina, but Amazon has decided to get Diamond Sports Group, help Diamond Sports Group, which owns Bally Sports, out of bankruptcy. So what does this mean for that network going forward?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if this means that all the game is going to be produced by Amazon. Do you have to put Amazon? Do you have to have Amazon to watch those games for those teams? So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do this, because Amazon helped them out of debt, but I'm sure they're going to want a little bit of something, for their part of the bargain. So I feel for those markets, especially Texas, because they're coming off their first World Series in franchise history. So if you can't watch them try to repeat, I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell them, honestly, if you don't have Amazon Prime.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, those Minnesota, Texas, and Cleveland, they'll be back with be back with their regional sports networks, i.e. Bally Sports, for this upcoming season. Of course, we talked about what happened last year with Arizona and San Diego. They cut ties with their Bally's regional sports networks. Of course, their games are being produced by Major League Baseball. Of course, it affected the Arizona teams in the other sports as well, with the Coyotes and the NHL, with NHL Productions producing their games now. Of course, the Phoenix Suns are being produced by over-the-air broadcast television. So it was a trickle-down effect. What does this means for baseball going forward? We shall see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, anything else before we go into Old School TV Monday?
I'm about to empty that tank, and I'm waiting for you to. I'm ready to hand you the baton for Old School TV Monday.
Okay, folks. All right. Since we're going with the theme here, the NFL theme, so we did the Fox NFL Sunday at the beginning of the season. It's only fitting that near the end of the season, with the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, we talk about the NFL Today. You're looking live here in Chicago.
Hey.
The NFL Today. Of course, it's still airing. We'll have a Super Bowl edition of NFL Today on CBS at 1:00. We're right before the Super Bowl. They'll commence there for the 4 hours. But for those of you who may not know, the original NFL Today was only 15 minutes. It premiered in 1968. It was a 15-minute program that was mostly pre-taped back in starting in 68 through 1973. In 74, they did go into a half-hour format, a live pregame show with halftime highlights and post-game wrap-up with the late Jack Whitaker and Lee Leonard. But it wasn't until 1975 is when Robert Wussler, I don't know how you say his name, who was no longer with, but he was a VP of CBS Sports at the time. He decided that he wanted to have a full-on, everything live, pregame, live halftime, because back then they were showing the band, the Battle of the Bands, and everything else. And also a post-game show. And, of course, Westler decided, brought Brett Musburger, of course, who was already making a big name for himself around the TV ranks. Irv Cross, who, if you're here in Chicago at the time, this is way back in the late 60s into mid 70s, he was a top sports anchor here in Chicago, a news paper reporter. And but he still, he was very smart. He went to I think he went to Yale, or I think it was Princeton. He was a very smart guy for he played in the league for about a decade. And of course you have Phyllis George, who, oh my God, you have a woman covering the NFL. Oh my goodness, that was unheard of back in the late 70s. Of course, for in the mid 70s, for those who don't remember, she was a former 1970s Miss America, 1970 Miss America, had done a lot of TV specials for various networks. So the three of them got together and they put together this show called the NFL Today, where you had an hour pregame right before the new Central Time kickoffs. Then you had the halftime highlights and analysis, and then you had the post game wrap up. It was just like it was a big hit. And after the success here, the NBC kicked in with their NFL Live pregame show the year after that. They saw how a big hit it was, and of course, we saw various hosts. Of course, they did it for for many years. Of course, then Jane Kennedy coming in, Black History Month. She was the first Black woman. Well, actually, one of any color, but particularly a Black woman to host a pregame show for any major sports at the time, back in 1978, after Phyllis George left to do the evening news for a little bit for CBS. And then after that, and throughout the 80s, and of course 1990, Greg Gumbel took over back in 1990 after Musburger got fired. That's a whole different situation there. We'll probably get to that at a later date. But yeah, he did it with Terry Bradshaw. And Mike Francesca, a few others, up until 93 when CBS lost NFL coverage. But then 5 years later, they brought it back. Gumbel did it for a little bit. He went to the booth. Jim Nantz came in and did it for a little bit. Then he went to the booth. James Brown, who was doing Fox NFL Sunday for about 15 years, came back in 2008. And of course, now he's been doing it ever since. And of course, our buddy Randy Cross, friend of the show, and also 3-time Super Bowl champion, was a part of that rebirth of the NFL Today, if you will, back in '98. So there have been various names. Of course, you had Jimmy the Greek Steiner. We won't talk about that whole side. Of course, Whitaker was a big thought of it as well, and of course, various players and coaches have gone in and out through the years. But we talk about Fox NFL Sunday as being like the pinnacle that kind of took it to another level. But if it wasn't for them, NFL Countdown on ESPN, and also too with was NFL Live on NBC. Those shows would not be around if it wasn't for the NFL Today.
And I think the clip is on YouTube. I believe I know NFL Films did a story on Phyllis George and Jane Kennedy for NFL Films. So you guys check that out. But as you mentioned, they were the first network to hire former athletes to do games and do studio work. And so, that wasn't heard of back in those days. That industry didn't explode until about the late 80s, early, and of course, in the 90s with ESPN, with former athletes and stars I'm getting a chance to do broadcasts. Of course, now the expansion is bigger thanks to social media, YouTube, and podcasting and things of that realm. But don't forget some of those other names that appeared on CBS over the years, even when they got the NFL back in 1998. Remember, Deion Sanders was on there for a couple years before he went back to play with Baltimore in 2005 to end his career. Don't forget Jared Glanville was on there a couple of years after he got the boot at Fox. So. And Mike Ditka spent some time on there as well. Don't forget Dick Buggins, who passed away late last year. He was on there for a while. He was juggling between that, and he did the Bears games on the radio back then on WGN radio. So, yeah, he had great moments and great athletes that made the show what it was. Like you said, Brent Musburger was the dean of hosts at that time. And so, like you said, Fox took it to another level when they got that contract in '94. But it was the NFL Today, like you said, that set the table for everything. And don't forget to, like you said, Lakina, with Phyllis George and Jane Kennedy, you never saw many female sports broadcasters, black or white, back then. They kind of set the table with what you see now. Of course, you had Andrea Joyce and, of course, Leslie Visser, and, of course, Pam Oliver in the 90s. Remember, she did her thing at ESPN for a couple of years before she went to Fox, where she's at now. So they started a trend that no one saw coming at the time with female sportscasters just taking over the market, which they have now. So they really started a lot of trends that people don't get them credit for.
Well, and also too, for those who if you remember back in 1988, Sports actually showed a 90-minute special. I don't know if you about the kind of a documentary about the NFL on TV and how it evolved over the years. I think it's still on YouTube. It's called Replay: History of the NFL on TV. They actually did an interview with, of course, Phyllis George. Of course, sadly, is no longer with us. Neither is Irv Cross. But she did say that it was kind of like Camelot. Of course, the Mod Squad, if you will. You had, of course, the white guy, Brett Musburger. Then you had the black dude, Phyllis, Irv Cross. He had the pretty lady, Phyllis George. So they were actually kind of like the Mod Squad, if you will. And that was unheard of back then. Using all that dynamic. So they definitely kind of like changed the way kind of like this whole aspect of sports television.
Yeah. And also, too, you mentioned they were the first network to show halftime highlights. So I remember back in the day, if you ask your parents, the parents or grandparents, you had to wait till the first few years when Monday Night Football started in 1970. You had to wait till the next day because Monday Night Football showed the highlights at halftime of their game. So, yeah, if you didn't have a newspaper, of course, there was no social media back then. You had to wait until the next day to watch halftime highlights from the previous day on Monday Night Football back in the 70s and early 80s. So a lot has changed since then. And we recommend you watching You're Looking Live. That's the special will be coming up this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central this Sunday, right before the Super Bowl on CBS. We'll give you our Siskel and Ebert review on that documentary around this time next week. So that was a great choice, Lakina. Great choice. And I'm definitely looking forward to that documentary. We'll see how many other behind-the-scenes stories that they tell during this documentary. I'm really looking forward to it.
Should be a lot of fun, and I already got it recorded on my my cloud streaming. So I'm looking forward to that. And we'll probably do the ABC Monday Night Football at some point because there's so much history there. But we'll save that for a later time, probably next season.
All right, so as we kick off Black History Month, Lakina McGee, great job as always as we salute the NFL Today on CBS.
All right,
right? Lakina, take it home.
Oh, I'm about to say, you want to give a shout out to Carl Weathers?
Oh, yes, that's right. That's why you have partners, folks. Yeah, Carl Weathers, for those of you that have been asleep, no pun intended, he passed away over the weekend. Of course, we got the news after we went off the air last Friday. He played for the Raiders for a little bit. This is something I forgot. Of course, he was an accomplished actor. Of course,
yes.
He started on all of those Rocky movies in the 80s. Of course, Action Jackson, where I heard him as a kid born in the 80s, as you well know. He starred opposite of Apollonia, who passed away a decade ago.
Yeah.
And so that he made a whole lot of money in that movie. That movie came out in 87, 88. Of course, you know who else was in that movie too before he became a TV star? Craig T. Nelson.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I gotta watch that movie. I know it's streaming somewhere. I think they have. Yeah, I gotta find it. Yeah, right before he got coached, I think Craig T. Nelson was in that.
And of course, I forgot. I remember watching this movie, but I forgot his role was important in this film. Happy Gilmore. How ironic for the character he played. Yeah,
Adam Sandler. He wrote a really nice tribute to him on Friday after the news came out of his death. I know he said that he and Carl stayed in touch, of course, over there. They actually were thinking about perhaps maybe doing another project together because he was still working up until his passing. He was in The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. If you guys, for those you have Disney Plus, you can guys check that out. And I remember he was supposed to be doing some which site was it? FanDuel or BetGM? I think it was BetGM. Cause I think Gronk did some stuff. I think Tom Brady's going to be in those commercial shows. Was supposed to air this Sunday. So of course, they had to make some adjustments there. So I mean, the Rocky movies, of course, he's best known for. Of course, Apollo was a villain, but then became a kind of like a hero until he died in Rocky 4. But his character, not Carl, of course. His character died in Rocky 4. But he was still, he and Sylvester Stallone, of course, stayed in touch. Of course, that Apollo Creed, of course, Michael B. Jordan, the sequel there, that was playing his son. But yeah, I mean, he was just a really good guy. Everyone loved working with him. So just a tough loss for not just us AIDS kids, but also not just the sports world, for all of Hollywood as well.
Yeah, and remember, Lakina, he played he played a husband to the Wiggler on Good Times back in the 70s. JJ was the painter.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
This bag of bones is messing with my wife.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And yeah. And Jimmy and JJ lived to tell about that story too. So he lived to tell
In
the
more
story
ways
too.
than one.
Yeah, that was right after that move, that Rocky era. He was definitely in high demand there. So yeah, so it was a tough loss for everybody, for us 80s kids. I think all of Hollywood and also the sports world especially. So we get our thoughts and prayers to Carl Weathers' family and the loss of a true icon.
Yes, his legend will never be forgotten. All right, now you can close us out.
All right, on that note, you follow Matt Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X at Kids Cooking, and the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are at, War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Please catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, and of course, hopefully, we'll have a big extravaganza on the Friday before the Super Bowl. We'll talk about prop bets. Hopefully, we'll have some good people to come on to preview the game with us. And so make sure you guys check us out at noon, especially on Friday, with our Super Bowl extravaganza.
Yay! And don't forget, you can catch Second City Sports and all of our great content from Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV.
Yeah, so and we will provide. So enjoy this nice weather we have. I know it's raining out there in Southern California, so folks be safe over there. And according to the rest of the country, I know it's going to be the 40s. So but still don't act foolish, okay? Still, even with the nice weather. So enjoy the hoops and everything else as you get up for the Super Bowl. For Sid, I'm Lakia. This has been Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Holla!